Hello and welcome back to Cosmic Fox ASMR. I will be reading chapters 3 and 4 today from My Friend Fear. This is a book that is supposed to help if you are an anxious person or have high anxiety. It's supposed to be a calming read. I have read it, and I agree. It was very helpful. If you haven't seen me read chapters 1 and 2, I will link the video below. And let's get started, shall we? Chapter 3, Being in a Body of Fear. The most complicated fears we harbor and hold on to are the ones that begin and end with who we are. It's easy to pick ourselves apart for things we cannot control, but the truth is that most of life happens outside of our control. It's impossible to make someone love you or leave you, change the body you were born into, or choose the circumstances that surround you. I was afraid of myself for a long time. I spent a whole summer lying in bed, watching the ceiling fan whir above me. The air, thick and wet, lowered itself onto me like thousands of soggy, thin blankets, the way August air in New York always does. It was a Saturday morning. What I really wished I could do was go to the beach, but the very idea kept me from getting up. Everything around me buzzed with the excitement of summer in the city. The sidewalks were filled with outdoor brunches and breezy dresses, and the subways were crowded with my sun-starved neighbors headed to Coney Island or Long Island for a relaxing day far away from the headaches and stresses of city life. I thought about showering and putting on a bathing suit. It won't be so bad, I told myself, but my heartbeat was already picking up speed. I thought about putting on a pair of shorts and stepping outside into the sunlight, into the big, bright world. I wanted to feel the warmth against my skin, but my chest was beginning to tighten and my eyebrows were knitted together, considering all the things that could easily go wrong. My mind drowned with possibilities, all simultaneously pushing and pulling, overwhelming me as they spiraled out of control. What I really wanted to do was go to the beach, but my fear wouldn't let me. Fear is born in the mind, but it quickly begins to form a physical shape. It is closely entwined with the nervous system, and when awakened, sends a clear message to the brain: help, I'm in danger. Inside the body, adrenaline surges, first through the brain, encouraging you to make impulsive split-second decisions, then through your arms and legs, preparing you to escape the imagined danger in front of you. In order to keep up with the body's demands, your heart pumps blood harder and faster, forcing shallow breaths to come more quickly. The idea that everything will be okay becomes unfathomable. For me, this is what it felt like when I thought about going to the beach. Ever since I became aware of beauty and its value to the world, the idea of going to the beach has made me stiff with anxiety. By the time I was 6 months old, I had 2 corrective surgeries, leaving me with a 17-inch scar that snakes its way along the inside of my foot and up the back of my leg. Like a lot of scars, it looks like a poorly placed zipper. Like anything that makes us different, it brought a lot of fear into my life, and it started at the beach. One day, I was practicing how to float in salt water, and on the very next day, I threw out all of my bathing suits. I'd learned to recognize myself as different. My friends averted their eyes when I wore shorts. My other classmates were far less kind. A boy said he'd heard about my body, the way my legs were different and ugly. He wanted to know what was wrong with me. I wanted to say that there was nothing wrong with me, but no words came out. By the time I reached age 12, I had left the beach behind. It wasn't a place for me. I wanted to feel the salt on my skin, in my hair, the hollowness that enters my lungs after spending too much time in the water. I wanted to remember the sun looking down on the sea, light fractals reflecting like thousands of mirrors lining the horizon. I wanted to collect a memory of myself completely immersed in the magic of it all. Light, water, body, all as one, pressed so closely together that I could no longer find where I ended and the ocean began. I wanted to remember feeling free. I wanted to remember feeling free. Instead, I thought about bathing suits, bikini or one piece, boy shorts or string. No matter what I chose, someone would see the scar, and I'd feel their eyes seeing it. I briefly considered the option of a wetsuit, all too aware that the idea was as ridiculous as the fear that kept me indoors. I thought about bodies and their imperfections and why we carry them around as unforgivable symbols of who we really are. I thought about my legs and how often I've wanted to trade them in for another set, a forgettable pair. I've wanted to fade into the background for years. Lying in bed was safe. The ceiling fan spun. I knew exactly what would happen next, how this day would turn into tomorrow, and then the one after that. Sometimes fear is imperceptible. A ghost that sits quietly next to me. Sometimes it looks at me, and I can see right through it. See how it tricks me into believing in something that isn't really there. Other times, fear is the dust on my ceiling fan, dark and rooted, deeply hoping that I'll never acknowledge it. I wondered how long before the inability to accept myself and my body would become a memory, an unrecognizable face, someone I used to know. How long would it be before I finally felt comfortable being seen? Chapter 4. Say hello to fear. not alone in our fears. Look around you. Every person you see is afraid of something. Some are small fears, losing our keys, and some are large, losing a loved one. But they live inside each one of us. Many of the fears we carry are justified, but many, many more begin as reasonable concerns before quickly evolving into irrational beasts. Our brain is designed to protect us. It doesn't always know the difference between facing a hungry shark or saying hello to a stranger. It's up to us to teach it the difference. Sit with your fears. Tune into your fears. Are you able to separate the irrational fears from the rational ones? Which fears scare you the most? When you feel fear coming closer, ask yourself, where is it coming from? What is its root? Is it sprouting from my present circumstances, or does it not have any root at all? Fear of jumping into water. Fear of drowning. Root. Can't swim. So, there's no root here about why they have a fear of jumping into water. But seeing as they can't swim, this would be a rational fear versus irrational. So, irrational fear of never being loved. Rational fear of being hurt again, because the root of the fear is history of toxic relationships. Irrational versus rational. Irrational versus rational. Irrational fears are stories that we weave into long, spinning tales. We tell these stories to ourselves repeatedly, choosing colors and feelings to accompany each twist, creating entire paintings of how each story will unfortunately unfold. These stories live in the future, always wondering what happens next, while rational fears live in the present. Identifying whether your current fear has a root can quickly help you to determine which kind of fear it is. And I completely agree with that. Listen to fear's story. Identify the purpose behind your fear. What will you accomplish if you quiet this irrational fear? Irrational fears paralyze us. They prevent us from being present in our daily lives, from honestly connecting with one another, and from being who we really are. We often sensationalize how unfortunate the endings to our stories are. We believe our potential pain is boundless and will ultimately ruin us. Change the story that your fear tells you. Instead of focusing on the fantastic but ultimately imaginary pain your fear is saving you from, look at what your irrational fears do to you. They force you to live in a small life instead of discovering the incredible world waiting for you. In moments of fear, I always come to a familiar crossroad. I can fold and live a little more safely with quietness instead of conflict. Or can go on and try, knowing there is no promise of safety or triumph waiting for me. These two choices stare at me knowingly, because no matter how many times I've come face to face with them, I've always chosen the same one. I choose to keep trying. I choose to keep trying even when I don't want to. I fan the little flame inside me and keep it from going out once more. Take one by the hand. Find things that scare you. Let them scare you. Do them anyway. If you're afraid of venturing to unfamiliar places, try taking a different route to work. When that becomes easier, make plans to visit a different part of your city. This becomes extra special if it's a place you've always wanted to go, a museum, cafe, or concert, but haven't because you were afraid. Now, I'm going to pause right here for a moment just to touch on something in this passage, because when I first moved here, I was allowed to drive, and that was pretty scary because, Americans versus British, we drive on opposite sides of the road, and the steering wheels are on the opposite side. But anyways, so come to a year after arriving, I didn't realize that I was only allowed to drive for 12 months on my American license, and then I had to go through the process of getting a UK driving license. But in that meantime, I had to start taking public transport, which I would say, a very irrational fear from it. So for a while, my very sweet husband would drive me everywhere. And then it just got to be too much because the poor guy had to work nights and I worked mornings. So he had a very stern talk with me and we came up with a plan of, on a weekend, we would take public transport and just, have a practice at it. Because obviously I was new to the town. I didn't really go many places. My husband doesn't really like going places that he doesn't know. So I'd say I was living a very sheltered life for a few years here. But, now skip to current times, I would say I'm a well-traveled individual. I am still taking public transport. I take trains and buses mostly, but I do take the occasional tram, and I do it by myself. So I feel very free now because in the beginning I let that irrational fear prevent me from doing what I wanted and exploring and, checking out a brand new city to myself. But now, even though sometimes it is a hassle to get on a train and wait for public transportation, I can comfortably do so because I eventually stopped letting that irrational fear control me. And today, because my husband doesn't want to drive, I've convinced him that we are going to have a day date out into the city. So we're going to go watch Doctor Strange, we're going to go get bubble tea and explore the Hong Kong market, and then end the day with some gourmet burgers. So I'm the one in charge of this. He's got no idea how to get to any of these places, so it's up to me, and I feel pretty good that I'm capable of doing that. the end of the tangent and we will get back to the book. If your irrational fear is of judgment or discomfort from others, say hello to the person in front of you, in line, at the coffee shop. Compliment someone you pass on the street. Give others the opportunity to help you lessen your fears. If there's anything I've learned while overcoming this fear myself, it's that people will always surprise you if you let them. Life is nothing other than a brilliant collection of experiences. Some rough, many smooth, some found underwater, others under stone. Look for them all. They're yours to take. So that's definitely one of mine. Moving to another country. This one as well. Making art no one likes. Swimming in the ocean, but I am a beach person. I love the beach and I love swimming, so yes, all mine. I will take those. Talking to strangers. This one I'm still working on. I'm a highly shy person. I struggle initiating conversation, but I accept conversation. I will talk to people. It's just very hard for me to initiate the conversation. Being alone is still a struggle, but I am getting better about accepting and not letting my imagination roam wild when I am alone. Letting someone see my heart. I am quite a closed-off person. I'm very, well, it's tricky because I'm open. If you were to ask me something personal, I wouldn't hide it, if it was a direct question, but I guess I more struggle trusting people. So yeah, this one's about half and half for me. And losing myself. I'd say between 2019 and 2021, I definitely struggled losing myself, and with 2022, I feel more comfortable taking control of myself now. So, work in progress. Well, surprisingly, those were small chapters, but unfortunately I've got to get ready for a day of traveling, or I would read some more, but hopefully there won't be such a big gap in between reading chapters. So for today, we will put a bookmark. Makeshift bookmark and close it for now. I do hope that you enjoyed this casual reading of My Friend Fear, and I hope that you all have a good morning, a good evening, and a good night. Until next time.